Alright, so hi to everyone watching this. My name is Giga and I will be showing you a game comparison in the Dragon Ball series, a case study of modern Dragon Ball video games through the lens of game design. For this presentation, I will do Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, the more recent game, against Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2, one of the staples of Dragon Ball games for at least 7 years. Now then, let's take a look at Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 first. Um, it is a 3D fighting game with a heavy aspect of MMORPG. It was initially released in 2016. The game is actually the sequel to Dragon Ball Xenoverse, the first game, and if I were to describe this game in one sentence, it would be being a part of the Dragon Ball world. And let's have a look at Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. It is a 3D fighting game, with the focus on the complex combat system. And it was released in 2024, precisely in October. So it's really new. It is the long-awaited successor to the Budokai Tenkaichi series, which is known for its deep mechanics even until now. And if I were to describe the game in one sentence, it would be feeling how Dragon Ball characters really fight. Next, I'll discuss the similarities between the two first and why both games are loved by the fandom. First of all, both games have a 3D mechanics fighting system, and it makes the game more open to the player. I mean, like the combat. A 2D-like fighting game such as Mortal Kombat does not give this feeling of freedom, and that's something else. Secondly, both games have an emphasis on high-powered combat, from the basic attacks to the key blasts. Both give out combat that just pumps the adrenaline and is fast-paced. Lastly, both are faithful to Dragon Ball style. This is one of the most important things. The art style, the characters, and the power system are perfectly translated into the game media. Even though both of them have similarities, they were made to give different experiences. The experience goal for Xenoverse 2 is to give a feeling of empowerment and immersion in the game world, while for Sparking Zero, it wants to give that competitive excitement and that feeling of mastery that comes from hours and hours of practicing the combos and just learning the characters. The game just wants you to feel like you are the best at the game. Both games also have different aesthetics goals. Xenoverse 2 aims to go to the pleasure of narrative, fantasy, and fellowship. This comes from the fact that the game uses the blank slate avatar as a protagonist. Online features are much more massive here. Um, yeah, that's for Xenoverse 2. Meanwhile, for Sparking Zero, it aims to give the pleasure of challenge and sensation, where the player feels each of the hits and power-ups do something significant, but mechanically, it's still hard to master. Now let's take a look at the formal elements. These are the formal elements based on Fullerson's definition. I would highlight the element of objective. Xenoverse 2 has a lot more game modes than Sparking Zero. The player can explore, fight, and do rescue quests. Meanwhile, Sparking Zero's objective only lies in winning the fight, which is capture. Now, for the dramatic elements, um, both of the games also differ greatly. Xenoverse 2 has this in-depth story with good storytelling. Meanwhile, Sparking Zero feels like it doesn't really try with the storytelling. Some say it looks like a PowerPoint presentation rather than a story mode, and this is something that a lot of fans are disappointed about Sparking Zero. Both give off different challenges as well. Xenoverse 2 gets harder as you progress, while Sparking Zero gets harder the more incompetent you are. So the more you master it, the more it gets easier. Next, I want to discuss about game space. Xenoverse 2 progress using these events called parallel quests, where you can just accept it if you want to, but if you don't want to, then you just can't leave it. Meanwhile, Sparking Zero goes through the route of having alternate routes to progress. Xenoverse resembles a points and space type of game, while Sparking Zero resembles a web game space. And both games do implement a chance-based drop system, and that's where the grinding comes in. These are the system dynamics of both games based on Fullerton's view. We can see that Sparking Zero has a more set of has a more complex set of behaviors. Now, for the game flow, both have great game flow, even though they have different difficulty adjustments. Xenoverse 2 uses DDA based on the player level, where the main roster and some enemies get stronger. Um, the player will also have more difficult quests unlocked the higher their level is. While Sparking Zero does not use DDA, although the game does provide the player with lots of assists for the mechanics, it also gives the player to choose to lower down the level of the enemy if they want to. This is the elemental tetra distribution based off Shell's book. Everything is important, I know, but I gave them some scores to try and quantify the game design quality. And as you can see, Xenoverse 2 has a better story, while Sparking Zero has better mechanics and technology. And finally, to sum it up, these are the comparisons that I made through the presentation. I added that Sparking Zero has local multiplayer, which is something rare nowadays. In my opinion, Xenoverse 2 has a better design choice for casual players, while Sparking Zero is better for competitive players. Overall, though, I would say that Sparking Zero wins in design choice, just because the mechanics itself. So these are the references and the media credits that I use for this presentation. All right, and thank you for listening and goodbye.